Have you ever worked on a watercolor painting for hours and everything was going great until you painted the background and then, oh my gosh, you ruined it? Or perhaps you avoid adding backgrounds to your paintings because painting larger areas intimidates you or makes you a little bit nervous. Believe me, I was there myself for a long time, and it wasn't until I said, I'm going to stop and I'm going to go back to the basics and build up the skills that I need to tackle these pieces with greater confidence and ease. And that's when I saw the greatest change. Sometimes, a lot of the times, in order to see that progress that we want, we need to actually go back to the basics. The three basic watercolor washes are flat, graded, and variegated. And it doesn't really matter what kind of painting you like working on. Having knowledge on how to create these different washes will help expand your horizons and give you the tools that you need. I'm going to share my favorite method of tackling larger areas and washes, which is wet into wet, and lots of must-know tips along the way for success, including how I use gravity to my advantage for smoother results. All right, with all this said, let's jump into the exercises. I want to provide a few tips so that you can get the most out of these exercises. Firstly, I have placed this wooden backing board at somewhere around a 20-25 degree angle. So I will be working on a tilted surface, and this is important to explore when you're getting started with watercolor, because since we're bringing in plenty of water as we're painting, it is good to get comfortable using gravity to your advantage. And this is especially the case when you're painting larger washes or larger areas. And as I'm working on these three washes, you will see me rotate my board and also play with the angle. I lift up my board and explore different angles. Sometimes it's more of a 45 degree angle. Sometimes I bring it up to almost a 90 degree angle. And during that time, I'm observing what is happening on my paper, seeing how much movement is taking place, and just exploring that angle until I arrive at the effects that I'm looking for. Another thing that I will say is that it's important for the sheets that you're working in to be a little bit larger, not super small, because if you're working too small, you're not really going to develop your ability to fill in larger areas faster. So just as an FYI, these rectangular sheets that I'm going to be working in are exactly 3.5 inches in width times 7.5 inches in height. Having said this, it is very, very important that you use larger brushes for these kinds of exercises. If you use smaller brushes, you'll get very, very frustrated, and this will likely not lead to the best results. I will be using a size 14 round brush to prepare my color mixtures just because it's more comfortable for me as I'm pulling paint from those wells. However, to do the actual exercises, I will be using a single size 6 mop brush from Princeton. This mop brush is like a larger, very absorbent round brush. If you're using a regular round brush, sizes do tend to vary a little bit from brand to brand, but I would say that anything below a size 14 is probably going to be too small if you're working in a similar size to mine. And if you're working with a flat brush, that is fine as well, but anything smaller than a 1 inch is also going to be too small. And finally, make sure before painting in your color for these that you have a nice juicy puddle of paint on your color mixing area of your palette, and that puddle is approximately 50% paint, 50% water. I am trying to go for a coffee, almost milk consistency. If your paint is too dry, meaning it doesn't have enough water in it, you won't be able to load up your brush well. And if there is too much water in your puddles, your color will appear very, very pale. We want to avoid going in and doing too much layering and messing around with the paint after we've placed it, unless it's absolutely necessary. The more you go in and try to layer and fix, the more likely it is that you'll arrive at backruns or splotchiness, too much texture, flatness, or simply overworked results. All right, so with all that said, let's jump in. This first wash is going to be the flat wash. In a flat wash, we're looking for an even, uniform color and value throughout that entire area. I have my nice juicy green puddle on my palette. You can use whichever colors you prefer for these explorations. And using my size 6 mop brush, I am starting to pre-wet this sheet right here. I'm bringing a little bit of water from my container and gently smoothing it on, making sure that I'm going over the entire area multiple times until I see a nice even sheen. I love approaching my larger washes wet on wet after having done pre-wetting with clean water, because this makes the process easier for me. All 3 washes can definitely be done on dry paper, wet on dry. However, for me, this is way easier to do because if you start by feeding that paper water, it's no longer as thirsty and you'll have more time to work before that paper starts to dry. Not to mention, watercolor always expands and creates these soft effects when placed on wet paper. So if you place paint on paper that is wet, that water is going to do half the work for you. So this ensures that A, I give myself more time before my paper starts to dry. I don't feel like I have to rush as much. And B, I ensure that I'm not going to be left with too much texture. I'm looking for soft effects, and that water is going to help me do that. All right, so after I've arrived at that nice, even glistening look all throughout my watercolor sheet, I load up my brush with a good amount of paint and I start painting in my color with linear or horizontal motions. For this one, I am constantly reloading my brush every 3 brush strokes or so to make sure that I have the same amount of paint in my bristles as I make my way down. This will help ensure that that green color and value stay consistent from top to bottom. As you can see, I'm not dipping my brush in my container of water at any time, because if I do that, I'm going to start bringing in more water into my mixture or onto my wash here. And I want to make sure that the amount of water that I have in my mixture and on my paper stays consistent, because otherwise I run the risk of having certain areas appear lighter and others appear darker. That's not what I want right now. Once I'm done applying my paint, I start exploring different tilts, rotating my board in different ways, really noticing what is happening on my paper. You are in control at all times. You can always change the tilt. If you don't want as much movement, then don't tilt it as much. If you want more movement, which might come in handy for the next 2 washes, then tilt your board more. But one thing I do make sure to do is to remove excess beadage that is taking place along the edges of my masking tape. Because if I leave that excess water there, it can create these little teeny tiny kind of backruns or blooms along the edges of my sheet. And now I'm gonna get ready for the graded wash. Graded washes are where a darker version of the color gradually transitions into a lighter version of the color or into the whiteness of the paper. So you can choose whichever color you want. I would recommend going for a darker color, maybe a dark blue or purple or green, so that you can have a fuller tonal range of that color. If you choose a very light color, you won't be able to see that gradient as well. I just went with a Prussian blue. For this one, I really want to start with more of a milk consistency, especially at the top where I want that color to be darkest. I changed my water so that I could do my pre-wetting with clean water, and I used my mop brush again to do my pre-wetting using linear brush strokes, first kind of horizontal and then vertical brush strokes. The important thing here is to make sure that you arrive at that even sheen all throughout. Take your time with the pre-wetting process. I cannot stress that enough. How long your pre-wetting process is going to take you and how fast your paint starts to dry after you have pre-wetted successfully is going to depend on the type of paper that you're using, on the environment that you're working in. If you're working in a warm environment, a cool environment, a humid or dry environment, or if you have a fan on, a heating system on, all of those things are going to have an impact on your drying times and also your final results. As a little tip, whenever you're painting larger washes, you may want to turn off any fans or maybe close windows if you're working near a window. All right, so getting ready to start with my graded wash here. I'm adding a little bit more Prussian blue into the mix just to make sure that I am starting with more of a milk consistency at the top. This is where I want this color to appear darkest. You might want to watch me do this first and then go ahead and try it yourself. After I loaded up my brush, I paint 3 brush strokes, and then I dip my brush in my container of water once, just once. I remove that excess drippage by gently scraping my bristles along the edge of my container. Then I paint in the next 3 brush strokes. Then I dip my brush in my water container again, remove that excess drippage by running my bristles along the edge of the container, and I paint in the next 2 or 3 brush strokes. I dip my brush in my container of water again, remove that excess drippage, paint in the next couple of brush strokes. Dip my paintbrush in my container of water, remove that excess drippage, and go in again with another 2 or 3 brush strokes. And this is the process that I go through until I get to the bottom. The tricky thing about a graded wash is that you really have to pay attention to how the color looks as you are laying it down. If you don't see enough of a difference, if your color is not appearing more and more pale, you might have to do an extra dip of your paintbrush in your water to dilute that color more and then continue. Or perhaps you do one single brush stroke so that you do have enough space to create that gradient and the color at the bottom does look a lot lighter than the color at the top, because sometimes you do run out of space. So you have to stay mindful of how much paint you have in your brush and how the color is looking on your paper, and then make decisions as you go if you're not getting that gradient. This process was very different from the last one with the flat wash, because with this one, we just loaded up our paintbrush once in the very beginning, and then we continued diluting that color more and more by dipping our brush into our container of water. Every single time you dip your brush in your container of water, that color is going to become paler and paler because some of that water is getting absorbed into the bristles and some of that color is being pushed out. And so that color becomes more and more diluted, allowing us to create this gradual transition. Here I am tilting my board in different ways to see if I can improve my gradient at all. And I also removed excess water from edges. I even turned my board all the way upside down to see if I could improve my gradient in that way, because I felt that a lot of blue was coming down and I wanted that bottom section to be as white as possible. By flipping my board upside down, the blue pigment traveled back to that place that I wanted darkest. Hopefully, now that we've gone through 2 washes, you've noticed how I've really done my best to not go back in mid-wash to try to fix things. As much as possible, I like applying my paint and leaving things alone. And I check to see if I can make things look a little bit better by actually tilting my board as opposed to going back in with another layer of paint or to do manual blending and so on and so forth. All right, final wash, and for me, this one is definitely the most challenging one. This is the variegated wash. In a variegated wash, we have 2 or more colors that are merging into each other gradually. So we have these soft transitions where one color turns into another one gradually and softly. For this one, I am going to be using Quinacridone Rose and Carbazole Violet. I created those 2 puddles on my mixing palette. I don't need as much of each color, but I do make sure that these color mixtures are more of a milk consistency so that that color can appear saturated and vibrant. I would recommend using colors that are analogous in the color wheel, meaning colors that are next to each other in the color wheel, because this will create a cleaner transition. If you use colors that are very different from each other, you'll likely get a more desaturated color in the middle where the 2 blend together. So yellow and green, purple and blue, purple and red, orange and red, all those would be great color combos. I'll be linking to my video on color theory for beginners, where I explain everything that you should know about the color wheel and also must-know information on color schemes like the analogous color scheme down below in the recommended resources in case you haven't checked it out. After having prepared my color mixtures, I changed my water in order to do my pre-wetting with clean water. And here I am working on that pre-wetting process, making sure to go over everything multiple times until I see that even sheen. So the way that I like thinking of this one is as if I'm creating two flat washes with two different colors, but those flat washes are overlapping in the middle. I try to transition the colors somewhere in the middle of my watercolor sheet. So whichever color I decide to start with, I try to stop near the halfway point, and then I rinse out my bristles completely. I load up my brush with a good amount of the second color, and I start my second color by overlapping a few brush strokes right over the first color, and then I continue making my way down. Because I want my purple area and my pink area to appear relatively consistent in value and intensity, I do allow myself to reload my brush in this one whenever I feel that the color is starting to become pale. With this one, you will see me work in 2 layers because I want to intensify the color, and I also want to make that middle transition a little bit more gradual. And I was able to work on a second layer without any issue because my paper was still wet and workable since I took my time to do that pre-wetting process. So this is what my variegated wash looks like with just one single application. But I rinsed out my brush, loaded up my paintbrush with more of that violet in a pretty thick state. This is like a milk consistency. And then I applied more purple in that top section. I tilted my board more to make that purple travel down. Then I flipped my board upside down and I worked on the pink a little bit more because the purple started eating up the pink and I didn't want my pink section to become just too small. So here I'm using my arms to keep my board tilted, and I applied more pink in this pink section, and I'm keeping my board very tilted. This is almost like a 40-degree angle from the surface of my desk. And you can see how that pink now is traveling down into the purple. And now this transition looks way better, way smoother. I want to encourage you to use these to not only practice your water and brush control, which is very important, but also simply as a way to have fun and explore what happens when you use gravity to your advantage when working with this medium. It can be so much fun to see that paint expand and move. And it's only by doing this kind of exploration that you're able to see what happens firsthand, and you're able to build up tools to help you create the effects you want in full paintings. I really hope that this tutorial was helpful. I hope that you're able to give these exercises a go for yourself. Thank you so very much for joining me on this one. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your art practice and see you very, very soon.